I like my interaction with the students, working on a one-to-one basis and trying to make sure that they develop a critical thinking about their society, about Latin America, about sociology, and how this can be useful not only in the research area, but also in their whole life course. That, I think, is very important. It gives me a unique opportunity to have a small influence in their lives. Teaching and research are complementary, and that firstly, it keeps you alive when you do research, and you bring the experience into the classrooms. I meet so many people in different parts of Latin America, and there is a lot of anecdotal evidence that you bring into the class, life experience, and sometimes you hope that one of these things will sparkle interest in the students. And it really works, because you see, biography, teaching, research, they all kind of mix together. Your life experience comes in as you struggle between the teaching, the research, and also a family life, because there's more to life than just work, as you know. So it's always a challenge to strike a balance. And I don't know whether I am that successful at it, but I'm just trying. What got me interested in sociology is that in 1965 there was a civil war in my country. And following this civil war, the United States intervened militarily. The attempt then was to bring about a democratic type of government, because we had lived under a long dictatorship of 31 years. Well, I may have to add that I am from the Dominican Republic, and that is the country that I'm talking about. And the dictatorship is that of Rafael Trujillo, who ruled the country between 1930 and 1961. Following his overthrow in 1961, there was a period of instability that led to the revolt. So as I was 12 years old when that happened. But when I went to high school, there was a lot of political activities, and I landed on some books, about sociology. I said, wow, this could help me understand why this revolt took place and what were the kind of consequences. So you see, in a way, the first book that I wrote, you can say that was autobiographical in a way, although I don't play any role in it, because it was a socio-historical study, but in a way relates to what I have been coming through in my own life. So I was trying to make sense out of it as to how, the society changes and why those changes takes place. So my work is a mixture of history, sociology, political sociology. The name of the book is The Catholic Church and Power Politics in Latin America. The Dominican Case in Comparative Perspective. This book looks at the oldest institution in Latin America, the Catholic Church, but it's also the oldest institution in the Western world, a global institution like no other, with a global perspective since it was begun. Now, my book wants to look at the role of the Catholic Church in Latin American politics as the Church changes its role from having supported, traditional authoritarian regimes to one in which the Church wants to play a mediating role between the new forces that come into power as a result of changes in the 1980s. You see, most of Latin American countries had been ruled by military dictators until the late 70s. Only 5 countries were not ruled by military dictators in Latin America. So during that time period, the Church was challenged from below to take, a more critical stance concerning the elites and also concerning government. So in many places, the Church moved from supporting these kinds of dictators, such as Brazil, to being one that took a very critical stance, and it had to pay the price for it. However, when the militaries were gone, then the church came in to play a different role, more of a mediator, and encouraging, the development of liberal democratic institutions. When you are a researcher, you have to use many, many techniques and also take advantage of opportunities that may come up. And sometimes you have to be at the right place in the right moment, but what helps is knowing the people that are involved in making decisions or who know what is happening, But you only get that through many years of dedication to a study, to a country, or to a reality. My upbringing as a Catholic, perhaps only indirectly, would have something to do with this. I was brought to this more by an intellectual curiosity of explaining an issue that I found was very conflictive and under study, not only in the Dominican Republic, but in Latin America as a whole. This issue of church mediation is kind of a cutting-edge type of research that's being done. So as a sociologist, I just went in with my theories and my methods and my intuition in trying to study the Catholic Church. And I would say that as I would do with any other topic that I study, I try to put my beliefs aside and try to provide an explanation. I know that those beliefs that you have always tend to have an influence on whatever you do. You cannot completely separate yourself from reality, because we are like fish in the water, and when you swim, you get wet. There were various types of things that I did. Tape interviews. So I would, the 80 interviews that I did were taped, except for some 10 interviews that were not taped. And I didn't never reveal the people that talked to me of anything like that. But I used the ideas, incorporate the ideas into the work. Secondly, when you are doing research, it's like you are doing it all the time. Even when you are asleep, you are thinking about it. So ideas come up anytime. I remember I was trying to develop a questionnaire, and I wasn't able to do it. Things were not coming up, so I went to sleep. So I got up and I wrote it like in about 15 minutes what I wanted to do, because the ideas came up. Sometimes, like you mentioned, I'm traveling in a bus and ideas will come up. I just jot them down. Usually, which is typical among sociologists who do qualitative interviews, qualitative research, what we do is I do the taped interview, but after the interview, I just go anywhere I can, take a piece of paper and write ideas that came up as a result of the interviews, or questions that I didn't ask, or ideas that came up as a result of the conversation, and I store that away, Well, in my case, I write in my office. I will come early in the morning, and I would spend the whole day. I have my sources spread out in the office, the interviews, I have articles, I have all kinds of things. And I have organized the sections of every chapter. So I take, from my sources dealing with that section of that chapter, and I have everything laid out. So I usually work in my office, and what I do out of the office is editing what I have written. You see, as you know, I'm writing in a foreign language, which is usually a difficult task. So a chapter that you see now that looks so nice, but I have written them like about 7 times. So writing and rewriting, I guess that is the same thing even for native speakers, but for me particularly, that has been the experience. So I have learned a lot about writing. So I just work in the office. That's basically what it is. My audiences are college students here in the United States, basically. So I have written in a jargon-free language. So I have tried to leave out, including my introduction. I reduced it from 40 pages to 19 because it was too thick theoretically, and I wanted to make sure that the introduction wasn't going to stop anybody from reading the book. So you don't need to know anything about the church or about sociology to understand it.